piece of cake, right?
Today on Absolute Anthem, I want to ask you guys a question. I want to have a conversation with you as a community, and it very much revolves around this. What sells you on Anthem? What has sold you on Anthem? What could or would sell you on Anthem? You know, what puts Anthem in a day one buy or soon after release buy position for you? Don't answer just yet, because we've got a lot more discussion to have before we get back to that, but start to think about it while you're watching here. Now, before we roll any further, I want to address the lack of Anthem info, the lack of Anthem info flow coming from BioWare. This is something we've known about. If you saw their most recent live stream, both John Warner and Mark Dara said the next time we can expect them to really talk about Anthem in a large capacity, it will be late summer, fall. So anywhere from end of August to October. This makes a lot of sense because they just recently revealed that their team is going to be at PAX Prime with their own panel. PAX Prime is running from August 31st to September 3rd. At that panel, the BioWare team is going to be talking about Anthem's My Story experience. This, of course, is the single-player, more traditional storytelling experience you're going to get when you return to Fort Tarsis. That's going to be their main focus of the panel. And then I can imagine shortly after that, they're going to start opening up about Anthem maybe just a little bit more, because we've still got a decent chunk of time in development. That'll probably lead into details, dates for the demos or the beta as we push into 2019, which of course will take us to the game's release on February 22nd. So new info, new goodness, potentially our opportunity to play the game for the first time is not at all far away, guys. It's actually really close. We don't got to wait long. So hold on to your javelin butts there. Before you know it, we'll be learning a lot more about Anthem and diving into its world in a big way. So that brings us back to the question I asked earlier. What sells you on Anthem? This really falls in line with, I guess, what would you like to see BioWare talk about when they do start to talk about Anthem in a larger capacity, late summer, early October, early fall? You know, what are you looking for from the team? Are you already sold? Is there something you want to hear them talk about in greater detail before you consider this a game you're going to be interested in 2019? That's really what I want to hear from you guys. And here's my thoughts, here's my perspective on, I guess you could say, the whole concept of learning about a game before it releases, because I think that is something specifically when it comes to the industry, games coverage, the games themselves, that has changed massively over the last 10 years. When I first started getting really into just learning about every game that I possibly could, like I want to know about all the games, I want to know about all the different genres, I want to experience as many games as I can, I just really fell in love with games in that regard. It was probably just before the original Halo. And at that point, everything was magazines. I mean, even when Halo 2 came out, I was just following Halo 2 via magazines. That's just how you did it, right? You read a bunch of magazines, you read one magazine, you got the opinion and the perspective of a bunch of different people in the press who got to play Halo 2, whether it was the multiplayer or the campaign, and then you just read along. You sort of read in on their experience, and you listened to what they had to say, and you said, okay, yeah, that gets me excited, or maybe that didn't get you excited. You continued to follow along, and you decided from those bits and pieces of information whether or not you would make a purchase on that game come day one. The first time that I remember distinctly getting like video footage of a game and using that in my purchase decision was Gears of War, the original Gears of War. I had already been following it via magazine. There was like a Killer Game Pro article that showcased the game's multiplayer, showed off the sniper rifle, the gibs, the executions, the active reloads, the curb stomping, the cover-based mechanics. And then you got to see a lot of video footage of the campaign not long after that. And that really showed off them like closing grub holes with frag grenades and, some of the characters, the storytelling. That was the first time where it was like, wow, I just got to see like more of a game than I've ever seen before. It wasn't just like an E3 demo. This is like the game. It's just a few months away. It was really a big deal, but I also quickly found myself in a position where I was like, wow, okay, now I kind of have to start to pull my own plug. When do I decide I've learned enough, and when do I put myself in a position where I'm going to let the rest be a mystery? When you cover a game on YouTube, you're typically then dedicated or forced into a position where you got to know everything, because a lot of people on the internet, they want to know everything too, right? So it's up to the developer and the publisher and how much they've decided to not show with you to really, I guess, decide just how much gets to be a surprise for you, you know, because you're in a position where you're like, I'm going to absorb it all. You know, you don't get to make that manual decision of I don't want to know anymore. And I think that can definitely alter, the experience of a video game. I'm not saying it spoils it so much. I'm not really someone who's like, oh, if you know all of the plot in a story, it ruins it. A great story is still a great story, and I think a great game is still a great game. But I think it does, at least in some way, influence how we look to absorb information and details on a game before release. The way I treated it back before video footage of games was popular, and the way I continue to treat it today, as games are a very diehard hobby of mine, plus they tie back into my work, so I get like a double-edged sword of here of, oh yeah, I like playing games, I like experiencing them, good or bad. I can almost always find something I want to say about the game that excites me. I also get to talk about the game, right? So it's I get the best of both worlds here. But for me, it's always been looking for specific mechanics, specific design decisions that just latch onto me, It's in the details. I've always said that. I think a lot of people tend to look at things with too broad of a brush. They just kind of look across the whole canvas and they don't see all the beautiful details. It's like looking at a Bob Ross painting and not recognizing the effort that went into putting the snow or the frost over the windows of the cabin he painted. Seeing the reflection on certain parts of that icy lake that he made, right? It's those details that bring a painting to life, and it's the same thing with games. So when I look at Anthem, the thing for me that acts as those details in that painting have very much been the javelins and the freedom of flight system. That's a big deal, man. There's very few games that have let you fly in the way Anthem is going to let you fly. That's enough to kind of sell me, to be honest. Moving beyond that, I really like the way they're trying to do co-op and storytelling. I think this is the first time I've seen anyone really say there's a very clear issue when you try and mesh the two together, so why don't we just find a way to separate them and give you the best of both worlds and allow that to create an experience where potentially people get to share their co-op experience and then share their single-player experience because it's actually quite different, and it wasn't something that was sort of half-arsed and shared because it had to be shared. People share it when they want to share it. I love the direction they're going with that. The rest is just kind of like icing on the cake then at that point. I do think the game looks incredibly beautiful. I love its aesthetic. I love a lot of the design decisions, and the bits and pieces we've seen of the dialogue and the voice acting have already presented a sort of atmosphere, a vibe that really hooks me. So those are the things for Anthem that, yeah, I'm sold. I don't need to know everything about the game. I don't need to know every nook and cranny of the experience. Of course I have my concerns about the end game, but if I play Anthem for even 30 hours and get to enjoy all of those things we just talked about, and it doesn't end up being this perfect end game experience, that 30 hours for whatever I pay, $60, is more than worth it for me. I'm not so obsessed with the finality of things. And even if a game is supposed to be games as a service, I'm not so obsessed with the ability to play it endlessly for thousands of hours. Sometimes it's just about the ride that you got to have. Obviously, it's nice to have more, and I hope that Anthem is able to have more, like a game like Monster Hunter's done. But it's definitely not the key deciding factor for me and whether or not I go to pay for a game so I can experience it. To give you guys a few other examples, there have been a few other games over the past, 5-10 years that have really stood out to me with those hooks. We mentioned Gears of War earlier. When I saw the cover-based system coming from someone who loved Kill Switch, one of the first games to use the third-person cover-based mechanic, that was already kind of a big selling point for me. The active reload, which to this day, why we don't have more cool manual reload mechanics blows my mind. The active reload was always one of the coolest friggin' things I've ever seen in video games. And recently, Lawbreakers, man. It's fitting, actually, that the active reload mechanic and the systems in Lawbreakers were in part related to the same individual. Because Lawbreakers' zero-G environments, its blind fire mechanic, and then using blind fire to move through zero-G, so fucking cool. You could say whatever you want to say about Lawbreakers. That game did so many cool things, dude. That's what hooked me. That's what got me going. I was like, yeah, I want to play more of this. I don't care if this game flops 3 months later. I want to experience these systems because they're friggin' cool, man. And as someone who really enjoys games and their finer details, that's what it's about for me personally. It's different for everyone. You don't have to be Tony Mo. You can be Dave or Jerry or Sam or Kelly or Sarah, and you can play games the way you want to play them, and you can experience the games you want to experience, and that's very much what I want to hear from you today. What will sell you on Anthem? What has sold you on Anthem? And I guess in general, what do you look for in games? What helps you make that purchase decision? What helps you say, that's something I'm interested in? Really, at the end of the day, I'm just asking you, to tell me the thing you love about video games. Because, hey, it's good to just sit down and talk about the things you love in a world where we spend a lot of time, way too much, talking about the things we hate. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please share your thoughts down in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one.